After listening to me attentively, the emperor began enumerating the troops and general resources at his disposal. When he reverted to this theme, I realized that all hope of peace was at an end, since it was enumerations of this kind which more than anything intoxicated him. Indeed, he ended by telling me that one good battle would knock the bottom out of my friend Alexander's fine resolutions, not to mention his sand fortifications, alluding to the defense works which were being thrown up along the banks of the Dwina and at Riga. He spoke of the situation in Spain and complained irritably of his generals there and the setbacks they had suffered, expressing his opinion that this vexatious state of affairs was due to the incompetence of the king, his brother Joseph of Spain, and of the French generals, and announcing his determination to make an end of it. He tried to persuade me that he could do this whenever he was so minded, but that the English would then attack elsewhere, perhaps even in France. Thus he concluded it was just as well, perhaps a positive advantage, for them to be in Portugal. He then returned to the Tsar Alexander. "He is fickle and feeble," he said once again. "He is obstinate," I replied. "His conciliatory nature makes him give way easily when he does not feel the issues at stake to be particularly important, but nonetheless he draws a line beyond which he will not be pushed." "He has the Greek character. He is untrustworthy," the emperor repeated once again. "I would not suggest," I said, "that he has always spoken everything that was in his mind, but whatever he has deigned to say to me has proved correct, and whatever promises he has made to your majesty through me, he has kept. Alexander is ambitious. There is some hidden purpose which he hopes to achieve through war. He wants war, I tell you. Otherwise, why should he refuse every arrangement I put forward? He has some secret purpose. Can't you see through him? No, he has larger motives than Poland and Oldenburg. These motives and the fact that your army is at Danzig are in themselves enough to explain the line he has taken. Though naturally, like every government in Europe, he is uneasy about the change your majesty has made in your policy since Tilsit, and more particularly since the Peace of Vienna. What has all that to do with Alexander? It does not affect him. Have I not told him to take Finland, Wallachia, and Moldavia? Have I not suggested that he should petition Turkey? Did I not give him 300 millions for the Austrian war? Yes, sire, but you would not expect such enticements to blind him to the fact that your majesty has since then marked out a quite new policy whose execution begins in Poland, that is in Russian territory. Like him, you are simply dreaming. Once more, I do not want to go to war with him, but he must fulfill the commitments which he has undertaken and enforce an embargo on English trade. What has he to fear from changes in my policy? What do such changes matter to a country like Russia away at the back of beyond? On that point, he has never explained himself to me. I do not prevent him from extending his dominions in Asia or even in Turkey, if he wants to, so long as he does not touch Constantinople. He is vexed that I should hold Holland. That galls him because he needs foreign loans. The reunion of the Hanseatic towns, the establishment of the Grand Duchy of Frankfurt, which means that your majesty intends to keep Italy, the giving of Hanover to Westphalia, all these changes made in times of peace and simply announced by decree alienate England and put obstacles in the way of making peace with her. Therefore, they conflict with Russia's best interests. Even so, it will not be on that account that she goes to war. And I must be dictated to by the English and by my brother, Louis of Holland, just to please Alexander? Rubensov knows quite well that before taking these trips, I did everything in my power to induce England to make peace. Labouchere has been to London several times, even on behalf of the Dutch. Am I to allow the north of Germany to be flooded with English goods? Had one merely threatened to put those measures in force, that would have been good policy. The execution of those measures, however, plus the movement of whole armies towards the north, instead of a few battalions to put pressure on the customs officers, has aroused apprehension. You see no further than Alexander, and he is merely frightened. It is these very policies to which you object that are taking all the heart out of the English and will force them to make peace. This conversation continued for some time longer. The emperor jumped from one question to another and at long intervals returned to the same questions, no doubt to see if I kept to the same answers. To judge from his air of preoccupation and from the long silences which broke up our 5 hours of conversation, it looked as if he were giving more serious consideration to the matters under discussion than perhaps he had ever given them before. After one of these long silences, he said, "It is the Austrian marriage which has set us at variance. The Tsar Alexander was angry because I did not marry his sister." I took the liberty of reminding the emperor that, as I had formerly reported to him, Russia was not at all eager for such a marriage. That, although the emperor had not been able to refuse outright to lend himself to the project, he would never have given away on the question of religion. That, in any case, there would have been a year's delay, even if the Tsar had been able to obtain his mother's consent. In short, that he had not committed himself in regard to the matter, and that Russia was rather pleased than otherwise to learn of the unexpected Austrian marriage having taken place. Notwithstanding our somewhat unceremonious manner of going back on the proposals of our own making, proposals which, happily, had not been accepted, but which, had they been accepted, would have made my position decidedly embarrassing. "I have forgotten the details of the affair," the emperor replied, "but Russia was certainly angry about our rapprochement with Austria." I pointed out that, in fact, as everyone had realized at the time, and as was proved by conversations with the emperor and Count Rumyantsev, when the first overtures in regard to this matter were made, the immediate reaction in Petersburg was an agreeable sense of relief at the removal of a very delicate question between the French and Russian governments, and a still more delicate question between the Tsar and his mother and family. The Emperor Napoleon again repeated that he had desired neither war nor the reestablishment of Poland, but that an understanding in the matter of neutral shipping and other differences was essential. "If your Majesty really desires an understanding, it will not be hard to bring one about," I said. "Are you sure about that?" the Empress asked. "Quite sure," was my reply, "but reasonable proposals must be put forward." "What proposals?" the Emperor said, and urged me to enumerate them. "Your Majesty knows as well as I do, and has known for long enough, the causes of the present estrangement. And you know better than I do what you are prepared to do to remedy it. But what? What does he want me to do? In regard to trade between the two countries, an arrangement should be made on the basis of reciprocal benefits, and a similar arrangement for merchant shipping in general. The admission of neutral ships into Russian ports should be countenanced, as long as we go on selling licenses and allowing licensed vessels into French ports. The Prince of Oldenburg should be provided for in such a way that he is not, as at Erfurt, entirely dependent on you. An arrangement should be made about Danzig, another about Prussia, and so on. When the emperor saw that I was touching on political matters, the discussion of which would force him to commit himself probably more than he wished to, He said that Monsieur Lauriston had been made responsible for the carrying out of this policy, that I ought to take a holiday. I begged His Majesty to let me say one more thing. Go on, the Emperor said. It is for you, sire, to decide whether there is to be peace or war. May I beseech your Majesty, when you make your choice between the certain good of the one and the hazards of the other, to take full account of your own welfare and of the welfare of France. You speak like a Russian, replied the Emperor. On the contrary, like a good Frenchman, like one of your Majesty's most faithful servants.